Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party. On today's show we are absolutely buzzing to talk about this year's most anticipated horror film, the spiritual successor to Destiny's Child's banger Say My Name. No, wait, I mean Jordan Peele's Candyman. No, wait, not even Christina Aguilera's Candyman. It's Nia DaCosta's Candyman. 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 Yeah, no, I can't do it. Nope, not going to do it. I'm Dallas King, and I'm not stupid enough to summon him, but I will summon someone else. Lee Hutchison, Lee Hutchison, Lee Hutchison, Lee Hutchison, Lee Hutchison. How are you, Lee Hutchison?
I'm gutted. I was going to say I was buzzing to be here, but you've already done that one, so yes, I'm fine.
You're appearing in the black mirror, which is my MacBook screen, right behind me after summoning, so I can feel that you're in the room. And also today we are joined by Candyman's daughter. She's sweet, she's deadly, she's bad for your teeth, with a lovely Scream 2 reference. It's Kim Morrison. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. That is literally my favourite Scream 2 quote ever. I'm so honoured to be mentioned in the sentence with it. Thank you.
That's all right. So Candyman is the sequel to the 1992 original film by Bernard Rose that created a horror icon in Tony Todd's titular role. Produced and co-written by Jordan Peele, the film is co-written and directed by Nia DaCosta, and I cannot shout that loudly enough. Nia DaCosta directed this film, not Jordan Peele. In present day, Anthony McCoy, an artist, and his partner have moved into a loft in the now gentrified Cabrini Green. A chance encounter with an old-timer exposes Anthony to the true story behind the Candyman legend, and inspired to use the macabre details in his paintings, he unwittingly opens a door to a complex past that unravels his own sanity and unleashes a terrifying wave of violence. So, before we dive into the film, I guess, were you two looking forward to this one? Because it's been a long time coming. I think it was was it maybe September 2020 it was originally meant to come out, so it's about a year late. Kim, were you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, no, I was a lot. I think I'm a big fan of sort of sequels that have come a little bit later. I think the two Candyman sequels that we have already aren't amazingly good compared to the original, so I was excited for a sort of different take on it. And I think the bits of the trailer and all the like puppetry stuff that we got to see beforehand made me like super excited for like the tone and the kind of look of it. So I was definitely sad that this is one of the ones that keeps getting pushed, but it's fine. I have seen it now, it's all good. So yeah, I was super excited to see this one.
And Lee, what about you? Were you sucked in by the marketing campaign? Because I have to say it's probably had one of the better marketing campaigns of recent years. The first trailer with the typical slowed down, slightly melancholy use of Destiny's Child, the mirrors in cinemas that have the Candyman logo on it, and even the final trailer being unlocked by anyone stupid enough to say Candyman 5 times into their phone. Did it suck you in?
Yeah, I loved that original trailer with the cover. It was like, oh, I'm immediately on board for this. I liked Nia DaCosta's first film, Little Woods, as well, so I was kind of looking forward to it. So yeah, I was really impressed by that trailer. Much like Kim, it was like the use of the puppets, the music. It just seemed like, and Coleman Domingo, always when he ever pops into things, it's like I'm immediately sold. So yeah, I this was a horror film that I was definitely keen to see in the cinema opening weekend.
Absolutely. And we all watched it opening weekend, and it's done very well in cinemas. In the US, it is the #1 movie. In America, potentially because it was not available to screen at home, who knows? But in a simultaneously exciting but ultimately also depressing fact, apparently Nia DaCosta is the first black female director to have a #1 film at the US box office. So it's like, yay, and also really. So I mean, I guess let's go I guess first impression. Actually, no, let's not go first impressions because I know what somebody's going to say. Let's talk about the original first, and I will admit now that Lee had not seen the original, and I stupidly gave him the advice of, "I'm sure they'll cover it all. You know, let's go for a bit of fun. Why don't you watch the the new one first and then watch the original and see how it plays out?" And having seen the new Candyman, I realized that was a terrible mistake, but never mind. So Kim, I expect you probably saw it several times and possibly many years ago. So I mean, let's come to you first. What were your first involvement with the Candyman?
I mean, I can't remember when I first watched it, but I do have very clear memories of being in like primary 6 or 7 and like daring people to say it in the mirror. I have a very specific memory of what like set of school toilets it was, so I know roughly what year I would have been in. So yeah, I think it was one of those ones. I feel like it was on the TV quite a lot when I was younger, so I probably caught it quite a bit. I think it's one of those films that it's obviously very like creepy, like the thought of the Candyman just coming out the mirror and murdering you is terrifying enough, but I think it's one of those films that like every time I watch it I sort of get something a bit different from it and I kind of understand it a bit more. And I think even I didn't watch it before going to see the new one. I watched it the day after because I was like, oh man, I probably should have watched that beforehand. And even then there was sort of little bits and references and bits of how the story played out that I don't think I'd completely caught the significance of before. So I think it's definitely one that you can rewatch like loads and it never kind of loses that creepy but really interesting element at the same time, because Candyman's not just this like faceless kind of killer. He has a really interesting backstory and reason for why he's doing everything. So yeah, it's one of those ones that I just like it a little bit more, I think, every time I watch it.
Yeah, and Lee, what was it like watching the original Candyman for the first time?
Yeah, it was one of those ones that I'd built up this hugely different idea about what the film was in my head. Like, if someone asked me what the Candyman movie was about, I would maybe written it on the back of a fag packet or less. The things I knew was like, you know, Candyman 5 times into a mirror. And it's crazy to think, like, I'm the same generation as Kim, and I remembered that being a thing. And like, it's still to this day, it's in the back of your head that you don't see Candyman 5 times in the mirror. Like, it almost was one of those ones, like, the Blair Witch Project came like at the right kind of age where you're kind of self-aware of like, I remember friends on the school bus like debating like, oh no, it's fake, and I was like, no, you know, they were saying it was real. I was like, no, it's fake, it's this movie. Where something like Candyman was kind of like, it became this urban myth within schools. I don't know how. I don't think any of us had seen it, but this idea that if you said it, like you were going to summon this Candyman, and no one ever had like the courage to say it 5 times. I don't know how that infiltrated the school system in Scotland as much as it did, but it clearly did. And I always remember seeing the VHS cover, like in Blockbuster and like video rental vans, just like that spookiness of like the eye and the bee, and I was just like, ooh. Like, I always had a feeling it'd be like a slasher style film. I knew Tony Todd was in it. I liked him from some of his stuff in Star Trek, obviously. So yeah, I kind of knew stuff about it. But when I kind of watched it after watching this sequel / reboot thing, I kind of was surprised at how much it was more like a procedural and not like a slasher. I was genuinely very, very surprised.
Yeah, because the original one, I would have seen it probably, maybe late 90s to begin with. But I think, yeah, there was that sort of thing at school that even though people really hadn't maybe seen it, everyone knew of the Candyman thing. And I don't know if it was just like Scottish secondary schools or something that did it. Basically, I don't know, I've got this image of, you know, like school bullies marching some young weedy kid into the toilet and standing them in front of a mirror and forcing them to say it 5 times or something. So I don't know, maybe that happened. And yeah, so it's like watching it, it's like you go, oh, okay, this is it. And I mean, Lee, how did you feel about star of one of your favorite films, Sideways, Virginia Madsen being the lead?
I did not know that either until I was listening to the 2021 version yesterday, and I was like, is that Virginia Madsen? It's like, is she in this movie? Like, I was surprised at how much little I knew, but I'd wrongly assumed about this film. Like, I had no idea that there was like this kind of female protagonist in the movie, or like how the Candyman actually operated. I'm pretty sure I knew about obviously the candy with like razor blades in it. So like there was just little things like that, but I didn't have a clue she would be in it, or Xander Berkeley. I didn't realize he was going to be in it. The whole thing was just a lot of surprises.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, I think it still definitely sort of holds up. It has a creepiness of tone, and I mean, I think watching the new film now, I would question the capability of Helen Lyle as a researcher and a writer, because clearly she did not get all the information on the various Candymans that have come since the original one. She kind of fixated on that one, but then she was just listening to some old English toff telling in a restaurant about one particular story. So I guess that's where that came from. But I mean, the kills are gory enough, and yeah, I mean, it's had this legacy that's outgrown the film, and that everyone, even if you haven't seen it, you still know the legend of the Candyman. And I think Tony Todd's performance is fantastic, and also, not just physically, but obviously, with his voice, he's got a tremendous, unique vocal performance as well, which does into. I have not seen either of the sequels, sadly. So we'll just have to move on to the new one, I guess. And yeah, first impressions. So Lee, let's come to you first, because this should be fun.
It it wasn't good, but it was better for having maybe actually, in some respects, watched this first over the remake. In some ways good, some ways bad. Like you read the synopsis on like Letterboxd or IMDb, which is easy to do when you're just maybe looking to see the runtime, or like checking on Cineworld, going, "Oh, Candyman, blah blah blah, does this." Like when I was watching that movie, like I didn't expect it, what is a well publicized thing, to be like it was all about this baby from the first movie, and about him as a grown up, and like his connection. Like that was genuinely surprising, but kind of probably obvious if I sat and thought about it with this recent Candyman. So I kind of liked that was preserved, whereas I think most people that had gone in to see Candyman, or maybe rewatched it the night before or in the run up, would go, "Oh yeah, that's Anthony," and all that sort of stuff. Like it's him, this connection is very clear. To me, that wasn't at all. So that was quite good. But then when you watch it, there's a lot of repetition between a lot of the storytelling of the first one, where they're talking about the Candyman, and there's things where you're going like, "Oh god, I've heard this story already," or you see the things with like the Rottweiler. There's just a lot of repetition that I didn't feel needed to be kind of retreaded. So things like that could be a little bit annoying, but I'm kind of glad I think I watched this one first. But I kind of had a lot of questions when I was watching. I was like, I don't get it. What's that? Like the logic, some of it just, there's like a point that, I know it's not a spoiler, but like I couldn't get the logic of what's the difference between like the Candyman and then the Candyman that comes out of like the mirrors and stuff. Like I didn't get that at all. And I kept thinking like, have I missed something? And I found that problem in the original as well. Cause like, there's a bit where, it's well in the trailer, you see these young girls all line up, and like all four of them, and then 5 out of the 4 say Candyman, Candyman, etc. And then he comes out and like kills them all, but the girl in the bathroom survives. But then there's a bit later on in the film where someone like says in the mirror of a car, Candyman 5 times, and then the Candyman comes along and like slays everyone that's in this like area, and you're like, but why didn't the girl earlier in the toilet get slayed, and why is everyone now being killed in this area, when should it be not the people that called it? Like I don't quite get the logic of how it all works, and I was confused both times about it.
I mean, well, I guess we can go into plot points and stuff and try and see if we can get them up. But there is, I think it's fair to say, probably some Gremlins-esque ambiguity to some of, like you say, the rules and stuff of how it all works. Certainly, what length of time are you allowed to give between the fourth and fifth utterance of Candyman? Are you allowed to be saying different things in between the Candymans? Because I know they do that in the school sequence. They do talk between each one, and it's like, would that really work? Because then they're not saying it repeatedly. So yeah, I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule for how you're allowed to do it, but yeah, we'll go into some of the plot points and stuff like that as well. But Kim, what were your first impressions?
I loved it. Like I'm always a bit nervous. And stuff like when they did the 2018 version of Halloween, which again, like Candyman, they very helpfully gave the same name as the film they are making a sequel of, which makes it really confusing. But I sort of came out of that one a little bit disappointed. But I think this one, I think like Tony Todd's Candyman is so iconic, and I was a bit wasn't really sure from the trailer. You weren't really sure like how they were going to do Candyman. It never showed you Tony Todd because he's not the Candyman in this one, and things. And I was like, I'm not really sure how they're going to do it. But I think the way that they did it, making it sort of that he's, you know, not just this one person. It's sort of a more representation of the terrible injustices that loads of like black men in this case have had to face, I think was a really interesting way to do it. And I think they managed to make him a lot creepier as well. Like I didn't actually realize in the original how long it is before Candyman himself actually pops up. Like there's so much stuff of just kind of the like whispers and stories about him. It's quite a while until he appears, and then he gets a kind of good couple of murder scenes. I sort of loved in this one that you were always just catching like glimpses of him in the mirrors, like reflections were doing slightly strange things. The fact that when he killed people, you never actually saw him unless it was in a mirror. It was all just very like, I mean that is true of the original as well. Like if you weren't the person who called him, then you don't see him. It's just you get killed invisibly or see people get murdered. But I just thought it was a really cool way of they managed to stay really true, I think, to everything that made the original good, but twist it and make it different and make it this own thing. And I think the images of Candyman in this one, the fact that he like kind of floated and just like the different ways that he killed and stuff, I think it was a lot creepier and kind of added to it, and I really liked that. So I think they did I actually think I like it slightly better than the original. I just think it was a bit creepier, maybe a bit less, like Lee said, a bit less procedural, a bit more kind of into the stuff instantly, and kind of just made some really cool imagery and shots around the killer and stuff. So yeah, I was a big fan.
I am probably somewhere in the middle. I think, which doesn't help, if it came down to a vote. But I mean, I was immediately hooked. I think the sort of backwards flipped sort of title sequences and sort of credit cards for the like Universal and all that were great. I mean, if it had been running on 35mm, I think I probably would have been having a minor heart attack as a projectionist to begin with, just to be like, oh god, what have I done? I've laced it up the wrong way. But then the sound was okay, so I knew that. I think the opening shot where it was sort of going along the street, but the camera was inverted, so it was like looking at the tops of buildings were pointing down and stuff, I thought was fantastic. I mean, I have to give credit to Nia DaCosta for her direction, John Guleserian for his cinematography, and if you're a fan of him, he has another film out this weekend. He's All That. He did the director photography of that, so I mean, it's a hell of a weekend for him. I'm not sure if they'll look exactly the same, but you never know. And then also, I think the composer, I think the score was fantastic, and that was Robert Aki Aubrey Lowe. So I just want to give a shout out to them now before I forget. But yeah, I was somewhere in the middle. It's probably rare these days to be in this camp, but I really wish that this 91-minute film had been closer to 2 hours. I think it could have benefited from a longer runtime and being able to sort of flesh out more of the sort of stories, because there is a lot of subplots, and we're going to go into some of that just now. And I'm just going to, if it's not obvious already, we are all Scottish, we're all white, and it might seem odd of three of us sort of critiquing film, but I mean, I guess the way I could spin it is that we're essentially the art critic from Candyman, and that we can comment and critique on the art, but it might not necessarily have been made for us, but we can still enjoy it and pass comment on it as it will. But we are maybe not the ultimate people to be doing it, but hopefully you will take what we say with a pinch of salt and take it in the good spirit that is made. If, for example, if Lee is tearing it to shreds, and we're also picking it up. So just get that out of the way. So, I mean, there's a lot of themes in this film. You've got, look at sort of the gentrification of Cabrini Green and Chicago in particular. I mean, they explicitly sort of say, they tear down these places, put up things, bring in sort of cool wine bars, art studios and stuff like that, and get people to make it cool. And then once it's hip and cool, they'll sort of jack the rent up and drive everyone else out. You've got to look at sort of the police brutality against the black community, and the sort of and what I guess is, like we were saying here, the extenuation of the Candyman legend. It turns out it's not just one. There's been sort of several. It's sort of used as shorthand for, each sort of generation has experienced the loss of someone at the hands of, whether it's the police or just the sort of rich white public and stuff like that. And then they use this to spin on it. You've got looking at, say, the urban legends. That was a big thing in the first one. It comes back again. I guess you don't have the white savior complex of the fact that, I mean, that is probably one of the big sticking points of the original one, is the fact that, there was this white woman who was trying to solve the mystery, and then it almost sort of seems that she's taken over the legend. At the beginning of the film, everyone talks about Helen Lyle as opposed to the Candyman. And it's interesting that the first 3 Candyman films were all directed by men, and I didn't realize that Bill Condon, who had directed Dreamgirls and Breaking Dawn 1 and 2, was actually the director of Candyman 2. Did not know that until I looked it up on IMDb today. So yeah, there's a lot to cover, and for me, it feels very, very rushed. There's bits which sort of come in and then sort of disappear again, like Tiona Paris's artist father who killed himself. It's sort of like that's kind of brought in, but then sort of left behind. We don't really find out a bit more about that. I mean, how did you guys feel about the multiple sort of themes and subplots and stuff like that? Did you feel that they all worked, or would you have preferred to maybe see it sort of trimmed down and focus on one or two in particular? Kim, let's come to you first.
It's weird because at the time I'd read beforehand someone had posted on Twitter saying the same thing, that they kind of wished it had been a bit longer, and I guess when I came out of it, I kind of thought it was fine. I think now that I've had time to think about it more, stuff like Brianna's parent, like her father subplot, like it wasn't until later on, like last night, I was actually like, wait, did you go back to that? And then I had to Google it, and people were like, nah, they just kind of mentioned it. I think bits like that, they kind of did enough to make sense, but I would have liked to have seen more. I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more of, I guess, like the last kind of 15 minutes that did feel a little bit kind of rushed. I would have liked a bit more, I guess, explanation to like William's kind of motivations and a bit more insight. I read things as well that, like, because I like the stuff he was doing, the stuff that William was doing, I sort of thought he'd just taken that on himself to do it. But then I read something online that people were like, oh no, Candyman was setting that up so that he's always got like a hive of people to work on. I don't actually know which one is true. I feel like it's a film I'm going to watch a couple more times to get sort of everything out of it. But I don't necessarily think that any of those plots like didn't work, and I think that they're fine to leave them in and you can sort of infer what you need to from them. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more to maybe explain them a bit, because I am the type of person that likes their ending over explained, so I know exactly what was happening, so I don't have to furiously Google it afterwards.
As anyone who would have listened to the Censor podcast last week, they would know exactly what we're talking about. So, Lee, what did you make of the multiple subplots? Was there anything you would like to have seen more of or less of?
I look forward to having Kim on for a Green Knight retrospective one day to hear her take on that ending to that film. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I could tell what it was trying to do with some of the kind of plot points it was making, from gentrification to really all cops are bastards, and just none of them, like the all cops are bastards one, for example, in the last like 5 minutes was like this additional 5-minute kind of subplot where, you know, you have a little bit at the beginning and then kind of at the end, and you're like, yeah, there could be more to be made of this, or like going through the film, like it just seemed to be a lot of different things that were just kind of being thrown at the screen as if like they felt like this was going to be their one and only opportunity to try and get this on screen, and not all of them packed a punch. And I think that was a problem throughout the film. You know, even like you see this bit at the beginning where you have this young girl that goes to the art exhibit and she's kind of looking at the mirror and takes away the sheet, and you think, oh, something's going to happen there. And then she comes in towards the end of the film, and it's like her and her pals, like, you know, as we see in the trailer, they summon Candyman, they all get slaughtered, and you're like, I don't get what the point of that was, because you're like, it feels like it's setting up in the beginning to be something, and you're like, oh, there's just like a really, you know, interesting kill scene where they kind of have things in reflections and mirrors, and go with sound, which I thought was quite a brave choice. But I was like, I don't, like, that could be completely cut out. I don't see what that's adding to a very black story, to have just these young girls kind of killed, and there's not like a comment where it's like their deaths are being kind of like, as you somewhat expect from the media, to be more overexposed than kind of black deaths. So it's just, I just didn't understand a lot of the time like what was kind of going with some of the plots, and like the William Burke thing I didn't understand really. I was like, okay, I don't get it, and I just find that really confusing. I was saying maybe a bit more time, but it just feels like maybe kind of focusing on a couple of plot threads and really flesh them out. There was just a lot going on that just didn't seem to work, and really across the entire film, and some of the characters from, and as you say, that bit with like her dad committing suicide, or like, oh, what's this leading to, and it's nothing. It's a bit bizarre.
Yeah, no, I think we'll dive into the William Burke stuff in a bit, but I think for me it's like, if the cop at the end, like the detective one, had sort of maybe appeared in like one scene before, sort of talking to Anthony, maybe questioning him about, you know, the murders or something like that. Some of that, it would have then, if it just one scene, I think would have then maybe justified the sort of ending of it perhaps. And like, I think I was the same with the teenage girl thing. It just, it felt like it was like a cool murder scene, but didn't really add much to it. Although, interesting, thinking back on it, I'm pretty sure that in this movie, every single person that the Candyman kills is white. So yeah, there's potentially something to be read into that, because in the first one, I think it's Casey Lemons, who's also in Silence of the Lambs, Virginia Madsen's best friend, she gets killed. So yeah, he's quite equal in it, whoever he kills in there. But it was interesting that this one is potentially just killing white folks, and I guess, yeah, it's interesting to look at the motivations of that, and we'll get into that in a spoiler bit towards the end. But Kim, you said when we were making notes about this, you thought it was interesting that this film is finally, I guess, the first one to actually have a black protagonist and a male protagonist, sort of going up against the Candyman. Before it's always been women, and I guess that's, if Lee will back me up on this, but there was a film recently called Pleasure, about the sex industry in LA, and basically they said that the most taboo thing that is still out there is interracial couples, and yeah, it always was sort of looking at that side of it in the first three. But here we've got, I guess, a black man returning to where he grew up, and finding it completely changed, and having to then deal with that side of it. And I guess it brings a fresh perspective to the genre. I mean, what did you guys make of Yahya Abdul-Mateen II in the role of Anthony McCoy? Which, again, I think that was one of the things which confused me, is that the way the film plays it is it plays it as a revelation to Anthony, but also kind of to the audience, that he was the baby from the first one. But it's like, if you had just watched the first one, you kind of already know, because the mum didn't even go to the. She told him he'd grown up, he got born in a different hospital, but she hadn't bothered to change his name to sort of more distance himself even more from, the story. But I mean, what did you guys make of the performances all round? Lee, we'll go to you first on this one.
Yeah, I thought the performances were good. Like, the Anthony McCoy thing, as I say, it worked for me because, like, I didn't have this, experience with the first film. So it's like a kind of surprise where, as I say, if you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, of course it's going to be him. Like, I just find the character, the performance was good, but I was slightly irritated by this kind of character that was clearly kind of like transforming, or something was going on with him, with this like bee sting that was kind of like changing his body. It was like, get that guy to the hospital, or is someone just going to like pull him up, that he is looking clearly really unwell? I was
wondering if that was an indictment on the American healthcare system, that he couldn't afford to go to the hospital due to, because he would have got stuck with a massive medical bill because he was unemployed. I just wondered if that was it. But it does. There is definitely some sort of Cronenberg-esque body horror transformation. He's not turning into a fly. He's going to turn into a massive bee at the end.
I think you make a good point. Like, if there would be something potentially to be made about, like, if I was always surprised, like, Anthony was never being investigated for these murders. Like, he was someone that was like connected them all really obviously, and he was like one of the last people to see like one of the characters as well. And there was just things where it was like, right, I don't quite get it. Whereas like that could be an interesting thing where you have this black guy that is being like targeted and kind of pulled up by the police. There could be something kind of going on there, but I just found like I couldn't quite get the character's kind of motivation, and I didn't really quite understand what his destiny was meant to be and so on. Like they were talking about, the Candyman's like got him set aside, and I'm like, but for what? Like I don't quite get it. And you know, it was the same with a lot of the other characters. Like there's some interesting parts to a lot of them, but they're quite underwritten. You know, Brianna, for example, like again, I get a bit confused where I'm sitting there like going, right, you know, she's this art, you know, she's someone in charge of art curation, but what more is there? Like they have these little subplots like, oh, you should come to New York, you should do this, you should do that, and it's like it feels like there should be more to her character, like it, or it's just a not interesting kind of plot line, someone debating what their next kind of career move is going to be. And the same with her brother, just a bit kind of this one note, kind of William Burke, Coleman Domingo. I really like him, but you know, it's the second movie this summer where Coleman Domingo randomly puts on a different accent at a surprising point in the movie. So, you know, we've got a trend there. There's just like none of these kind of characters seem to just be as well written as they could be, or have their kind of motivations kind of, you know, cleared up a little bit. I just found it quite messy, to be honest.
And Kim, what did you make of Yaya as the new Candyman?
Yeah, I thought he was good. I think the protagonists in the Candyman films are always supposed to be slightly annoying because, like, why would you get involved with it? And you think as well, with him being sort of more involved with like Cabrini Green and stuff, which I guess he didn't know at the time, but that he'd be have more knowledge to like stay away from it. It just seems really daft. But I think see, with me with the twist of him being the baby, right? I'm just completely daft because I knew the baby was going to be in it. I was like, oh, well, somebody's going to be the baby from the thing, and I knew that Vanessa Williams, who was the mother in the first one, I knew that she was in the sequel, so I was like, obviously the baby's going to come in somewhere. But I didn't for a minute just think it was going to be the main character, and I honestly think I could have watched the original right before it and I would have forgotten that his name was Anthony in like those 3 hours, because she only says it a couple of times and I really just don't pay attention. So I think it was a nice sort of, yeah, obviously it was more of a reveal for him, but I think it worked as a reveal for me, remembering being, oh, right, okay, that's who he is. But also I think if you already knew that, it wasn't too like in your face. It was more that it was supposed to be a kind of reveal for him to kind of understand that he's kind of had this connection to Candyman the whole time. But no, I thought he was really good. I thought he played it really well. It's that sort of, it's the same kind of thing that Candyman did in the first film, where he just tries to isolate people from everything around them so that he can use them in the way that he wants. And I think maybe they sort of had the hints of like he could have been connected to the crimes, but they didn't have enough to like actually investigate him for it, because like in the first one, Virginia just ends up like getting committed like instantly, and then she spends a lot of the film just locked away and having to like escape and things. So I think the fact that they sort of had the hints, and then maybe the fact that they didn't even have any kind of solid evidence against them, and then they still like came in at the end and were bastards to him. Like it kind of proves that like they didn't even need that connection. They were just going to go on those assumptions anyway. So yeah, I think he was it was really good. I'm not a fan of that, I can't remember what the name of it is, but you know that fear people have of like little holes like tight spaced together, like when his face at the end was all like half a beehive. That I did not like that at all. That was giving me the actual dry heave. But yeah, I thought he was very good in his role, but I could have done without the beehive face.
I mean, for me, I think he's one of the most interesting, exciting actors of like the last few years. I think was it Aquaman, where he was like in the opening segment as Black Mamba, and I was like, I'd rather watch a Black Mamba movie than an Aquaman movie. I mean, this guy's acting everyone else off the screen, and he sort of stole every scene he was in the trial of Chicago 7 as well. So I've always got a lot of time for him. I think he's fantastic. And yeah, Coleman Domingo is a scene-stealing actor whenever he's in. And I thought the performances were all fantastic. I think they were great. It's just, yeah, I guess now we'll go into the spoiler section of the podcast, because there's a lot to unpack about the ending. So if you haven't seen Candyman yet, press pause, go see it, and come back. Okay, everyone's clear. Right, we'll get into it. So at the end, it's revealed that William Burke, Coleman Domingo's character, who still lives in Cabrini Green, is essentially setting up Anthony McCoy to be this generation's version of the Candyman, to the point where he, phones up the police and say he's the guy behind the murders, and then rather mercilessly cuts off his hand and sticks a hook in it, to make him more like it. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of people have been, even earlier there was arguments over it as to his motivations, as to why he would be doing this. I've got a theory. I mean, I can put it forward and we can see what everyone else thinks. I mean, it did come kind of out of left field, which, I mean, I guess is good. I mean, you didn't know who this film was happening, but why? I mean, I was wondering if he was wanting to create a new version of the Candyman to basically sully the neighborhood's reputation in the eyes of rich white people who maybe wouldn't want to move into the area, and he'd be able to keep some semblance or some form of the original Cabrini Green where he's lived his whole life. He just didn't want people coming in here, so he's created a mass murderer to put people off it. I don't know. That's my theory. What about everyone else?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm gonna just throw it out there. Like, I did not come away with that. I was very confused. Like, it was quite funny. I was watching we mentioned it earlier, The Green Knight earlier on, where it's a film that's really ambiguous. And I was watching it with someone, and they were like, I don't really know what that was about, or what was that about? And I was like, I had this idea, so it's this and that. And, what was like the spinning of the camera about? And it's like, oh, it's the ticking of time down to Christmas. Like, I had a lot of like half-assed, half-baked, probably completely off-base ideas about that film. And it felt like there was a lot of room to interpret it in whatever way I wanted. Whereas with this, I was on the opposite side. I was like confused of like, I don't understand. Like, there was just, I was kind of watching it just thinking like, there was an ambiguity to kind of project a lot of my own things into it. And I didn't feel like there was, I kind of kept watching it going like, have I missed something? Like, I'm watching this film, like I'm paying attention, but like, what's going on? Is this like someone from another film? Is, what's the whole point? And what is this guy trying to do? And I just came away just completely flummoxed, and I thought, well, this guy's just taking a bit of a turn here. He's gone a bit nuts, and I felt really sorry for him when he was like, arm was getting cut off and he was being like transformed, and I genuinely don't get it, and I didn't really have anything that I could kind of mark out of it personally.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to make a lot of sense, like, when I say it, but I think what it was is, like, Candyman had been this thing in Cabrini Green for ages, and I read somewhere that he was actually sort of a bit like their unofficial protector, but he was also sort of like a boogeyman as well, because in the first film, loads of people are getting killed and stuff. It's not actually him, it's criminals pretending to be him, but he's sort of happy with that enough because he's a bit like Freddy Krueger. He just needs people to believe in him enough for him to have the power, like, to exist. And his whole thing with taking the woman at the beginning and baby Anthony is that he wants to, like, kill them and do this whole big thing in front of everyone so that his name will, like, live on forever. And because the baby ends up getting saved, it's sort of her legend that kind of carries on rather than his. And then also, like Anthony's mum was saying, the fact that they decided they were never going to speak his name again, it's very like opening of Freddy versus Jason, where like Freddy just doesn't have any power anymore, so like neither does Candyman really. And I think what William's character kind of decided was that Cabrini Green really needed this character. I guess in the first film, Cabrini Green is seen as quite a scary place by like the white people around about it. They're terrified to go in there because of the gangs, and they've heard about the murders and the things about Candyman, and things have all kind of added up. Whereas in this one, it's very much getting wiped out, and it's kind of just fenced off and left to kind of fend for itself. I think what he has decided is that if they had another Candyman and like brought it back, and then obviously because the version that we see is kind of the one that he had from his youth, but if they actually like have Anthony like getting killed and everything and coming back as Candyman, that'll be in everyone's conscious like for ages, and it'll bring it back. And I think the fact that at the end he kind of comes back as more of a like vigilante thing and kills all the police but leaves Brianna alive so that she can kind of spread the story, it kind of leans into that, like kind of protector, kind of avenging their death and like all the other deaths that the Candyman hive have experienced a little bit. So I'm not sure William's logic was like completely sound, but I think that's what he was trying to do, was he felt like that part of the city needed Candyman to kind of survive basically all the kind of gentrification and the police pressure and things. They needed this kind of boogeyman to live, so he decided to sacrifice Anthony, because that's what Candyman wanted to burn Anthony up as a baby, so he'd kind of be marked by him. So he was I guess he thought he would be a better use than like sacrificing himself or whatever, maybe.
No, I think that's an excellent theory, actually. Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. I think, because at the beginning, the story that, the brother tells is not the one of Candyman, it's the one of Helen Lyle. So I think, it's about reclaiming, their past and their history. And I mean, the only thing that is slightly odd for me is the fact that he would consciously, basically create a new Candyman out of desperation and madness when he had accidentally caused the previous version of Candyman by accidentally shouting out it when the guy was just trying to offer him some sweets, man. But we've all been told, don't accept sweets from a stranger because they're probably a wrong un. So it's safe to say he probably did the right thing. But yeah, he felt bad about that. But because there certainly wasn't any hint towards the end about that he was working in league with like a previous iteration of the Candyman. And so at the end, he's got the gun in hand and he's sort of lying there dying after killing William Burke, and the police just come in straight away and shoot him and decide, take the girlfriend into the car, and are like, well, there's one or two stories. One, we saved you from, he was going to try and kill you, so we put him down straight away, or you were in on it, we'll put you to jail. So it's like, she's like, well, yes, indeed, all police are bastards. So she decides to give them the answer they want, but she needs to look in the mirror first, and then she summons Candyman, who comes out in a more supernatural form. He's made of bees. No, not the bees. It's an excellent double bill with the Nicolas Cage version of the Wicker Man. And he slaughters everyone, and then kind of, I think, looks like he kind of morphs into a CGI de-aged Tony Todd, who then tells Brianna to basically kill everyone, which is interesting. And then it sort of kind of cuts to black, and that's the end of it. And so it's kind of leaving it set up for a sequel. I mean, what did you sort of make of that final sort of sequence, and what it might mean for the future of the Candyman franchise?
Well, it's going to be a box office success, isn't it? And that's really positive. I mean, I also saw the same headlines about, a first black woman to get a directed film to #1 at the box office. I wouldn't bet on her. Wouldn't bet against her being, getting a second when her Miss Marvel sequel comes out. But yeah, like these things are positive, and the representation that's displayed in it are positive things. I just think it was just a bit of a messy film. Like I thought it was quite innovative in terms of how much it avoided being a, as I say, I also expect this to be a sort of slasher movie, and I thought the kills were quite impressive to look at, especially the one that is in like the high-rise Chicago building, and the one with the girls in the room. The one towards the end with the police was like, I've kind of seen this done and dusted before. I think
that one was a bit sort of just Michael Myers going.
Yeah, it reminded me almost a bit of like The Invisible Man. I was like, oh, I've seen this done much better. And that was a film where I think where it had a strong, powerful message that had been underrepresented in like horror movies, about this gaslighting and domestic abuse, etc. And it really focused in on that, and like it hammered that message home really well. And I thought that was a fantastic film, one of the best of last year. Whereas this has a lot of the same great, powerful intentions, but it's quite muddled, and it feels like it's trying to say a lot of things without kind of saying them all fully. And I think we've mentioned this before sometimes with, this may be my opinion, where sometimes you'll get it with like directors that come from perhaps like a minority background that aren't as well represented in films and sequels, and often if they have a box office flop, that's them in like movie jail compared to much less successful white writers and directors. And even someone like Jordan Peele, he's a household name now. He's done some great films, he's done things like The Twilight Zone, etc. You often wonder, like, is it in the back of their mind that we have like a powerful message we want to get across? We want to get it, like, hammer all this in, because we might never get that second chance again. We might not get this next Marvel movie. We might not even get to make a small independent movie. And sometimes I think there might be that anxiety to be a movie that is a load of different things, because you might not be confident you can get a second or third attempt at getting your message out.
Yeah, no, that's all. I think that's all excellent points. And you reminded me of the tweet that I saw. That someone did a video review on YouTube complaining that Candyman got woke, and Candyman has been updated to address issues like social justice, gentrification, and such like that. And so clearly had never watched the original Candyman. But I mean, all the best horror films are the ones that actually, all horror films pretty much, apart from maybe like a very straight to the point slasher movie, have something to say about the times at which they are created in. It's obvious. It's out there. You don't have to look it up. You can look it up and you'll see that I'm right. So there we go. So Kim, what did you make of that sort of final sort of sequence and where it sort of leaves us for the future?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I think sort of having his having Brianna's character sort of the whole way through not super believing in Candyman, I guess it sort of finally hit home to her, like what I guess other people were experiencing. Maybe she'd kind of been a bit sheltered from it if she hadn't grown up somewhere like Cabrini Green or somewhere, and it kind of hit her all at once. So I think it was cool that she was able to like weaponize Candyman against the police. I think the sort of final sequence was really cool. I think they sort of, I like the way that they used the bees a bit more rather than just obviously in the first one it's just because he died because of the bees. Sort of all the like the hive metaphors and stuff were really cool. So I thought it was quite a cool final shot of him like with a big bee head just like floating and then kind of turning into Tony Todd's, to because he was like the original one, to kind of show that they were all still in there and they were all sort of working for the same thing. I think it would be a good way to set up a sequel. I'm not sure how a sequel would work because I mean, I would still go and see it obviously, but like the sequels to the original are all just very much the same story getting repeated. It's all women who look very much like Helen, who are somehow either connected to her or to Daniel Robitaille's like original lover, and basically having the same kind of horny Clive Barker-ish story. Whereas I'm not really sure. I feel like I don't know what angle they would take with a sequel. I would be interested to see it, but I think it was a good way of either setting up a sequel, or I think it would be fine if it just ended there, and the implication that sort of Candyman was back and kind of stronger, I guess, than he had been since the 90s when Helen could have ruined it by being a slightly better legend than him. but yeah, no, I thought it was good. Yeah, again, I do feel like that last sort of chunk was a little bit rushed. I could have just done with a bit more room to breathe to kind of understand everything that was going on. And I think getting to watch it a few more times will maybe help with that. But I do think that it was a good ending, and I would be happy if they made more, because I would be interested to see sort of how they took it and how they dealt with the fact that we now know that Candyman can be loads of different people all smooshed into one, and how that would work.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. I mean, I am still slightly on the fence about it, but I definitely probably will rewatch it. And I think maybe, again, it might be one of those ones where I maybe was going in with a different movie in my mind, and I got something different, so therefore I can appreciate it maybe more for what it is. Do they leave it, another generation and bring back a new Candyman? Say another 20 years or something, or do they go into a straight sequel where, like you say, Brianna is sort of like going on a mission to take down some fools and weaponize it. It just calls out, she's in a bit of spot of bother. She just calls up Candyman, and Candyman comes out, kills everyone, and then goes back off into his hive, and then comes back out again or something. Who knows? Yeah, she might be living on a bee farm, in the next one or something. Who knows? Weaponizing the bees. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what they can do with it, because like you say, it's been very popular, so there's definitely scope to do it. It's just how they sort of, especially I guess now, because the internet and social media certainly wasn't a thing with in 1992 when the first one was out, and I think there's definitely scope to use that in the sequel. I mean, it could go really badly, but I guess you could. Spreading this urban legend online, I guess, is I saw the Candyman and doing all that. So yeah, interesting to see where it goes. I mean, I expect the studio will greenlight a sequel, whether we want one, whether audiences want one, whether the filmmakers want to make another one, because at the moment, if something makes money, they want to get more money. At the moment, they've been starved of money over the last year, so they need to make some money. I mean, even Free Guy, a film which was all about the crassness of IP and the terribleness of sequels and stuff, has been greenlit for a sequel. So, I mean, irony is not dead. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens next. But I'm certainly, like I say, I was on the fence, but I'm still excited to see what Nia DaCosta has next. She's taking that path. She's going down into the Marvel universe. She's doing the Marvels sequel, which will look at Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel and Marvel the Wonder Dog or whoever else is in it. I don't know. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens then. But thanks for joining us. And I guess it just leaves me to do one final thing. Candyman, 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 Candyman.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.